INS, the International News Service, your source for the most important weird news from across the globe. With news analyst Kevin Harrison, actor, comedian, and musician Mike Wiebe, and professional commentator Brian Camp. INS, the news you need.
The South by Southwest and Dracula's played, and the cast and crew of the new Evil Dead Rise movie came over.
Really?
And
How was
which
it?
I
Like
didn't
all
know
of them?
any of them. I think most of them. I think there's like some little kids in the movie. They were not there.
No,
But
okay.
because no babies allowed at my shows.
Then why are you there?
I use every fucking language I want to use.
Mhm.
I use every fucking language I want to
Wow.
The
use.
swears
Spanish?
curdle milk.
Swear words,
Oh.
Latin words, romance language words,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's all the words.
pillow talk,
Speaking
positive and negative
Yeah.
affirmation.
Give
So
Evil
get
Dead.
back to the celebrities. That's all we care about.
What's the name of the
Bruce
movie?
Campbell was there. Evil
Ooh.
Dead Rise. It looks good.
Okay, is he in it?
I think he just has a cameo in it.
Okay.
Now he's a producer on it.
Okay.
But
So-
it's real. Did you see the last Evil Dead remake that they did?
No, I didn't.
Heard it was
It was
good.
good.
Okay.
I liked it.
I didn't see it.
Real gory and real scary. Really not like they weren't. The other Evil Deads are kind of jokey,
Right.
And this was, and I think this one's supposed to be like that too. And it's a real like. The last one was like, they put it back in a cabin. It was kind of a reboot or remake or whatever. But this new one's completely new location and stuff like that. And I've heard a lot of good stuff about it. But anyway, yeah, Bruce Campbell was there, and he kind of weirdly dressed a little bit like Dracula. He had like a turtleneck on and a medallion, like a beatnik.
Oh, that's
Nice.
awesome.
And I joked around with him for a little bit, and he was friendly enough. But he had a young gal, probably the actress of that movie. She was riding his jock.
Wow.
She was macking on him.
Oh, really?
Nice.
Yeah.
Like she was all about
And she
Bruce.
bit his cheek.
No,
and
she didn't.
She bit his. She was really drunk, and she's apparently an actress in the movie. And a lot of people seem to be sweet on her, but she wasn't like that kind of weird movie star. She was attractive. I'm not saying anything negative about
Yeah.
her,
Mm-hmm.
but like sometimes, like I've met a couple or been around a couple like movie stars, and like they're weird attractive.
Uh-huh.
Like you can't look at them straight because
Okay.
they're so like perfect, and it just
Yeah.
doesn't. It's like uncanny valley,
Yeah.
like that. Carrie Russell was like that, and Lupita Nyong'o. I was on
Okay.
Right.
a thing red carpet with her.
You
and I was
say
like, I can't
Uncanny
believe
Valley.
it.
Is
At
that
the
like
Oscars, you were on.
is that like the mandolin effect?
It's the Mandalorian effect.
Okay. All right. Now I think I know
Where
what you're
you're
talking
just
about
like,
now.
wow, you look like CG from Star Wars. But yeah, she was all over him, and he goes, "Hey, you're about to get canceled. I could cancel her." But I couldn't tell if he was like serious or not. But it was that weird thing of like, when you have someone hitting on you, there's a certain level of hot from them you would need to be willing to put up to be bit on the cheek, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
And that level of hotness is probably different from person to person. But I kind of figured she was below that level for Bruce Campbell to deal with, because I think I would have been a little bit annoyed for a drunk person to really bite me on the.
It wasn't like a playful nibble. It was like a full on like, ow, fuck.
It
bite.
seemed like it was playful.
Is it
But
possible?
it seemed like a little drunkenly too aggressive.
Biting on the cheek just makes it sound like she might be one of the Evil Dead.
That's what I was a little worried about.
Yeah.
Or his face meat is very tender.
Oh, well,
tastes good.
tender. Yeah.
Maybe all the oils have soaked in and created a supple treat for the nibbler.
Well, is
A
tender
supple
is tender when there's a lot of muscle density in there, or when it's soft.
When it's soft. Is he a soft dude or is he?
No, I don't know.
He's old. He's an old guy
he's
now, right?
He's older, yeah.
64. I looked it up.
Oh, 64 years young.
64 and looking to score.
Mm-hmm. That's what was on
Hey,
his cake.
actresses, where you at?
Was she? Do you think she was overcompensating? Do you think maybe it was one of those things like, well, yeah, she's an actress, but she's, maybe not real worldly because she's always been wanting to be an actress, and she found herself in a place that was not the type of place she would normally go.
Are you opening me up to speak negatively of actresses? Because it's not a hard door for anyone to open for me. Let me tell you. No, I don't know. I have no idea. It was but everybody was very nice.
Was she
the
friendly?
director fellow.
Did you
she was
chat with
real
her?
drunk. She was real drunk.
Okay, well then, give her a pass. People get drunk.
Yeah.
No big deal.
We've all done dumb shit when we were drunk.
Yeah, it's hard. There's that Bruce Campbell aura that you're like, wow.
Right.
You get drunk by that alone.
Why were they there?
Because Tim Lee from the Alamo took them all there to see the Draculas.
Nice.
Really?
Yeah.
Mike's
Wasn't that
band,
nice?
for those who don't
That's
know.
super fucking cool.
Yeah.
Maybe you will be on the soundtrack of the third
Ooh.
Evil Dead.
I certainly hope so.
Maybe you will be a band featured that gets killed off halfway
I
through
would
the
love
first
that.
act. Wouldn't that be great?
That's my dream. Is we're the band that's playing in the
Right. Would you
at the prom?
Would
or
you
something
agree
like
to
that.
write a title track for a movie?
Oh,
I think that needs to
hell
come
yeah.
back in a big way. That has been
Oh
missing.
man,
from
I would
movies.
love that.
Yeah.
I've written a couple intro outros for some people's comedy specials, and I've written a couple podcast intros.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I like the job of that. I like the write a musical thing, because you don't have to think about. It's good. It's fun to have some parameters that are real different from your normal writing parameters.
That makes sense.
Welcome to the internet. Oh, wait.
Oh yeah. Wait. What are we doing?
Whatever. No, it doesn't matter. I was just about to get.
Welcome to the International News Service. We're your hosts. I'm Kevin Harrison, along with
I'm Brian Camp.
I'm Mike Wiebe, and I just wanted to say that I have already written something for the new Star Wars movies.
So this week, we've got one news story, and Mike has a story for us in Get to Know Your Podcast.
Getting to know you.
Getting to know all about your
We don't have the rights to that song.
Getting to know. But no one does.
No, we don't.
Yeah, it's
not public
royalty
domain.
free.
No, that's not.
Sure.
Public
No.
domain. Public
Well,
domain.
then how come I can sing it?
Yeah. It's written by Alexander Graham Bell.
Well, if you call that
Getting
singing.
to know you.
Getting to know about your podcast.
And we just made it satire.
Getting to listen about Adnan on Serial. Adnan did that shit.
I keep thinking you say Algernon, and then I think it's about
Well, Algernon did.
About flowers.
Yeah, Algernon did it. Didn't he squeeze an animal too tight? Or was
I
that
never read that
That
book.
was Lenny from Mice and Men.
Yeah.
Sorry, I mixed them up.
Wait, I have a question for Brian real quick. Did you actually read any of the books we were assigned in high school?
In high school,
Yes, high school, not college.
probably, but probably not in line with the assignment. I'd have to see a list. I don't think I ever went out of my way to read them
Right.
as they were assigned, but I probably
They
caught
did-
up accidentally on some of them.
They did. I don't know about now, but back then they really kind of went out of their way to what books will make people hate reading the rest of their lives. Let's
Oh,
assign
yeah.
those.
Like Jane Eyre,
Oh
Lord
my
Jim, Madame Bovary, Great Expectations. I read that.
Madame Bovary's a little dirty.
It's like Dickens, man.
Yeah,
You know,
paid by the
Scares
word.
the dickens out of me.
they got paid by the word or letter. Yeah, good for him.
Our first
I
story
was just
comes.
gonna say, hold on, let me.
yes,
You
yes.
didn't ask me what I read.
We
we
assume
know what you didn't read.
not.
You read X-Men.
I didn't read books in high school, but I did read everything in college that I was assigned to because I went to sex college. And guess what? I was straight A's. And guess what else? Magna cum laude.
So our first story comes to us from CTV News in Canada.
SCTV?
No, just CTV.
I love SCTV.
Is it Father Guido from that? Father Guido Sarducci?
That was SNL.
No, that was SCTV. He was a Canadian guy.
Uncle Floyd was from
Martin
SCTV.
Short.
Yes.
Martin Short.
Ed Grimley. Actually, I think Ed Grimley was on both.
I think that was Eugene Levy.
Yeah, he was on SCTV.
Yeah, and he did Father Guido Sarducci with John Candy, who played the altar boy.
Don Novello.
The Breakfast Club.
All the boxes have been checked. We can continue.
Yes.
In May 2021,
2021.
a 45
You're enunciating beautifully.
A 45-year-old teacher from Quebec, Canada, named Neil Epstein, was on a walk with his children when he ran into a neighbor named Michael Nechache. Nechache was holding a power tool in what was described as, quote, a menacing way. The teacher responded by lifting both his middle fingers at Nechache and then continuing on his walk. See, I told you this would tie into last week.
It does.
When he returned home, the teacher was met by police who arrested him for criminal harassment, uttering threats because he flipped off his neighbor. The case went to trial in late February, where the judge found, and I quote, "It is not a crime to give someone the finger. Flipping the proverbial bird is a God-given, charter-enshrined right that belongs to every red-blooded Canadian. It may not be civil, it may not be polite, it may not be gentlemanly. Nevertheless, it does not trigger criminal liability." It was also revealed at trial that this conflict began when Nechache's mother and father had multiple disputes with local families because they were driving dangerously close to children on the sidewalk, and substantiated by video footage after it was revealed that Nechache had set up cameras on his parents' cars and around the neighborhood so he could spy on everything. In addition to recognizing the fundamental right to flip the bird, the judge said, quote, "The court is inclined to actually take the criminal file and throw it out the window, which is the only way to adequately express my bewilderment with the fact that Mr. Epstein was subjected to an arrest and a fulsome criminal prosecution."
Why did the cops
go ahead?
I mean, I think we're literally saying the same thing.
Right.
Why? What world do cops actually put cuffs on you and take you into the thing?
So part of it was I know in Canada it's illegal to make a credible threat against someone, and according to Nechache, the guy, in addition to flipping him off, took his finger and crossed it across his throat.
Yeah.
But there was video evidence, and that didn't happen. But the police nevertheless went, "Oh, that sounds pretty bad," and and it's Canada; they probably didn't have that much to do, so they went and arrested him anyway.
I was getting ready to grandstand on USA and our freedom to flip one another off whenever we feel like it, and thankfully, our neighbors to the north. Our friends across the border.
Yes.
The great beyond.
The Great White North.
The Great White North.
Our inferior northern neighbors.
Ouch.
Yeah, that is Michael Wiebe of the Draculas. Insulting all of Canada.
No, that's where my record label is in management team. So
they're good people. Well, you know what?
What did I say?
You said
inferior.
I said superior. Northern
I think you said fury, like you're fiery.
No, I don't
fiery
think so.
people.
I don't think that's. I don't think that, and I don't think anyone would go back and try and listen to that.
No, that technology doesn't exist.
It's so
yet.
hard to do on a phone to go back.
You have to. It's like an 8-track. You got to play it all the way around from the very beginning.
What a pain that was.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pleased to hear that our Mountie patrolled province, territorial Alberta people.
No, this is Quebec.
Quebec. Oh, separatists in Quebec.
Well, I don't know that they were separatists,
but there's a lot of separatists in Quebec, right?
Well,
yes.
I think that's died down a little bit. I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
The Separatists. No friends to the Gungans. The Separatists.
No, is that your inspiration for the song you're writing?
Mm-hmm. Yep. The song's called "No Friend to the Gungans."
No friend to the Gungans. Yeah, and it's one of those.
No friend to me.
It's one of those titles that after you hear the song, you hear the title, and you're like, "Oh, I get it."
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
Well, good for Canada.
You know, God, yeah, it was just last week that I was talking about cartoon character white woman, and now I have another story about almost this is very similar.
That makes more sense.
Another cartoon, like whenever, and this is even crazier. Like whenever like conservatives are talking about, insane liberals who like nobody's allowed to do anything and the wokeness is so out of hand and blah blah blah. And I'm always like, I'm in that culture of like what would be that culture, and most of the like liberal socialist leaning friends are actually pretty open minded about even conservative shit too, for the most part.
Yeah,
like even young people, it's not nobody's like that. Not that many people are that like insane, so far to the left that they just don't make sense as people anymore, or they become cartoon characters.
Right.
And but this one time I was working at this bar, and there was this girl that was there, this woman that was young gal that was there, and some dude, and I don't know, maybe the guy was kind of a jerk by the way he hit on her, but she came up and was like, this guy was talking to me. She told me what he said, and I can't remember what it was, but it was very like not aggressive language.
Right.
But I get that maybe somebody could have come off as aggressive or frightening, but there was a lot of people around, and the dude had left, and she was like, leave me alone. She's like, but then on the way out, he said, hey, it's cool. And then he pointed and did finger guns at her.
Oh my God.
And she was like, I need you to call the police for me right now. And I was like, well, he's gone. Are you afraid to walk to your car? And she was like, no, it's right there. I can see it from where, and he's gone. I saw him drive off. I'm like, well,
were his fingers loaded?
Yeah. And she was like, that's a death threat. That's a death threat. And I was like, well, and I wasn't like defending him, but it was one of those things, and I could tell she was so riled up that it was going to be like a negative Yelp review with my name on it on the bar, or like a phone call to like my manager at the time or something like that. So I was trying to play her advocate, but I was still saying like, if we call the cops, like, I'm just going to tell you, like, I'm not saying that they shouldn't do anything, which totally they shouldn't. I was like, but they're not going to do anything.
Right.
And she was just, well, they have to. And I was like, yeah, I don't think that.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I've been in enough circumstances with cops that I know they're not going to do anything. And she just kept insisting that I call the cops, and then saying, I need you to come out and verify that this happened. And I was like, well, I didn't see it happen. She's like, I need you to verify that I told you this. That's fine. The cop came, and it was like the bar coffee shop I was at was a 24-hour place. And so these cops would come by all the time for coffee and stuff. So we kind of, I kind of knew him and stuff. And he just came up and was just shaking his head like, why? And I'm just like, yeah. And we were just both kind of had this, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, did they ever catch the master criminal, the finger gun bandit?
Well, that's the real weird thing. Apparently he's still at large.
Right.
But apparently he's been pulling this same thing in several other states.
They didn't find
so
it.
There's a whole FBI task force on him now.
His calling card, finger guns.
It was hilarious. Like I'm forgetting details of the conversation, because I do understand that people can be intimidating without saying anything negative. You can be very that. But I'd seen, and I'm not even totally defending this guy that maybe he was.
Ooh, like the preacher in Poltergeist 2.
Oh, it's dying time.
Our next story is a bonus story.
Oh.
boundness.
If you want to listen to this, go to our Patreon and subscribe at least the $3 level. That's the Knights of Kevin level. You'll get access to this and all of our other bonus stories. I'll give you a little taste here. This is about possibly the craziest thing any social network has ever done, to the extent that it makes Twitter from the last few months look sane and normal. And like a stable company.
But it's about Friendster.
Well,
that's a good
Is it
question.
about Friendster?
That's probably
no,
about
it's
Friendster.
not about Friendster. No, sorry, guys. You have to tune in to find out.
I was on Friendster.
You were, I remember.
What was your avatar like on Friendster? What was it? A picture of you? Was it a picture of a house cat?
It was a picture of a alligator dick.
Oh, it's kind of like a salamander.
Yeah.
So let's go to get to know your podcast.
Getting to know.
I think Mike has a story for us in getting to know your podcast.
Okay. Sometimes we talk about things that people might not know about. And this is one that I think has come up a number of times. And really, there's so much stuff with it that I'm still trying to dig into, that I've only scratched the surface. I think this is probably just going to be part one, because I don't even really know where to stop this, because there's so much stuff.
Listener, this will continue in 2 weeks.
We screwed with every kid's mind, says Marty Krofft of the loopy shows such as HR, Puffin Stuff, Lidsville, and The Land of the Lost that he created with his brother Sid in the early 1970s. There's an edge. Disney doesn't have an edge. We're talking about HR, Puffin Stuff, Lidsville, Land of the Lost, The Lost Saucer, Dr. Shrinker, Electra Woman and Dinah Girl.
Electra Woman and Dinah Girl.
We're talking about the Far Out Space Nuts,
Bugaloos,
the Bugaloos, Sigmund and the Sea Monster. We are talking about Sid and Marty Krofft. Still around,
really?
Still alive. Over 64 years in show business together. Sid is in his 90s, Marty's in his 80s. Kind of had this Sid and Marty Krofft comedy hour, a selection of shows that they would rifle through. But that was after they had a bunch of seasonal shows. Basically, they were doing live action puppets at a time when the only other puppet game in town was probably Jim Henson. Only Sid and Marty Krofft looked like they were on a lot of fucking drugs. It is the druggiest show of all. The Kroffts have been playing with dolls their whole lives, jokes Marty. The children of Greek immigrants. Their original last name was Yolas. So yeah, why wouldn't you change it to Krofft with two fucking T's? F's.
Two F's. Yeah.
The brothers taught themselves the art of puppeteering. By the time Sid was 20, he had joined the Ringling Brothers as a circus as a puppeteer. Marty teamed up with his brother in 1957, and their TV break came 10 years later when Joe Barbera commissioned them to design costumes for the Banana Splits Adventure Hour, a live-action / cartoon variety show.
Come up on the podcast before, right?
Yeah, I know that's come up on the podcast.
Oh, Danger Island.
Oh, yeah, Danger Island, yeah.
When that was a hit, NBC asked them to come up with their own show, so they revamped a character they had created for San Antonio's 1968 World's Fair, adding a dash of Puff the Magic Dragon. Now, this is a little piece. It's come up that they did puppets for an X-rated puppet show in the 1962 Seattle World's Fair. It was like a burlesque show, and Dracula was in the show, and they got Bela Lugosi to do voices that somebody would do puppet Dracula. Boris Karloff did a Frankenstein. It's really hard to find any information about what was actually in the puppet show other than it was X-rated, which means Sid and Marty Krofft made a puppet show that you could use in order to generate revenue to the Getter app. Saturday Morning had never seen anything like HR Puffin Stuff when he premiered in September 6th of 1969. The story follows a teenager, played by Jack Wilde, lost on a fantastical living island where he befriends the talking dragon, HR Puffin Stuff, sorry. I never knew that HR Puffin Stuff was a dragon.
Yeah.
I thought he was just a big piece of shit,
like
you know?
No, he had a dragon tail, didn't he?
Yeah.
He had a dragon tail.
I guess so. I mean, now that I'm reading that, I'm like, yeah, I guess. But he didn't.
Tiny wings, maybe, on his back?
He just looked like Mayor McCheese.
Well, what does a dragon look like,
Which
Mike?
we'll get to.
Oh,
A dragon looks like Game of Thrones. I think most accurately portrayed the
Okay.
dragon
Okay.
correctly.
Hmm.
Now, some people think that a dragon has 4 legs and
Mhm.
wings, whereas others think that the wings are connected to the front legs. What you think says a lot about who you are as a
Wow.
person,
wow.
and how racist you are.
Damn it.
Racist against dragons?
Mhm.
No, against
Oh,
people
yeah, that's bad.
and kobolds
Well,
and mind flayers.
mind flayers are people too.
The live action show of HR Puff and Stuff lasted only 17 episodes. NBC wanted a second season, but offered only a small increase in the show's $52,000 an episode
Oh, wow.
budget, which is about $335,000 today.
A lot of felt.
The brothers were already spending twice that and could not afford to continue. Still, the show became a huge cultural hit in syndication. Marty recalls the Beatles asking for tapes. Beatles were a rock
Oh,
band.
did Rolling Stone ever cover
around
them?
then. No, they were British, and Rolling Stone pretty much only covered.
No, the Rolling Stones are
has only ever
British.
covered America. College kids love the psychedelic themes. Marty denies that the creators were drug inspired. He said, "You cannot do a show stoned," which is not true at all.
How would you know that?
As this, well, let's just say, what's my secret, Captain? That's my secret, Captain. I'm always stoned. I'll tell you why. Because I'm stoned to the bone.
Wow.
That's what your tattoo says.
Mm-hmm. Actually, it's a mummy giving a thumbs up, and it says "Seniors '97." That's a wrap.
Man, you need to get that.
I am gonna get that. It came up again recently. So college kids love the psychedelic themes. He says you can't do it stoned. McDonald's and its advertising firm borrowed from Puff and Stuff to create Mayor McCheese
What?
and other McDonald's characters. And the Crofts had to sue them, and they won a reported 7-figure settlement in 1977.
Grimace 2?
So, Grimace is Krofft as fuck.
But Grimace is pretty cool.
That's another cool. That'd be another
Krofft is-
cool tattoo. Grimace
would
is
be
Krofft
good.
as fuck. Anyway, a torrent of similarly trippy shows followed. The Bugaloos from 70 to 72, Lidsville from 71 to 73, Sigmund and the Sea Monsters from 73 to 75, and Land of the Lost from 1974 to 1976. And then they opened up a theme park in downtown Atlanta,
Oh, wow.
but it only lasted for a little while. It was at like 6 levels, and it was 6 levels high, and it was billed as the world's first vertical amusement park. About 600,000 visitors came during the recession-plagued 70s, but it wasn't enough to cover the park's costs and the interest payments, and it closed down in 6 months.
Damn.
Much of the financing for the $20 million park came through loans from various banks and investments from Lamar Hunt, the Ford Foundation, and others. That information means nothing to me nor to anyone.
That's just big old money was heavily invested in Sid and Marty Krofft. That's pretty good.
The Chubb Group.
Lamar Hunt?
Lamar Hunt owns a sports. I forget which team he owns, but the Hunt family.
I believe it's pronounced Yamar. But Puff and Stuff and other 70s shows remain the Crofts' best-known creations. I called JetBlue the other day, recalls Marty, a grandfather of 5 who lives in Sherman Oaks. Sid never married. I think that means that he's probably just a guy that sits around donating to the Getter app.
That's exactly what it means.
More for the app is what he says. Anytime I ask him about getting a sexual partner, he says, "Nah, I'm saving it all up for the app." And I always have been. And the operator said, "You're not the Marty Krofft from Sid and Marty Krofft, are you?" And then she went on to sing the theme from Lidsville. So the reason this came up was because just the other day I fell into a little bit of a YouTube wormhole thinking and talking about Sid and Marty Krofft. And particularly the show that I came to first was Lidsville, which was one that came on a little bit less. But Lidsville's crazy. It's about a kid who goes to the Six Flags over Texas,
Okay.
right? Back in 70.
Did he get a pink thing or a blue thing?
Well, that's the problem. They don't show him doing that, but they do show him going to a magic show because there was some kind of crazy magic show there. And when he goes inside, he sees this magician played by Charles Nelson Riley. And the magician's doing all these tricks, pulling a rabbit out of the hat, yada, yada. And his friends leave. And then he's like, I got to go get a piece of this magic. And he goes back inside and he goes into the room. He starts playing with the hat. And the second he touches the hat, it's like, whoa, it feels crazy. And then the hat grows to where it's, fills up half the room. And the kid, played by Butch Patrick, that you should be a big fan of Butch Patrick, Brian.
Eddie Munster. Awesome.
Eddie Munster. And it was one of those things I was trying to figure out how old Eddie Munster was in this, because he's a teenager. He's got red hair, which was kind of surprising. Anyway, he crawls up, goes down into there, and then he's in this weird land where everything's a hat. The Lidsville means like the lid of a hat. But back in the day, to cop a lid, that meant to go purchase yourself some dubage.
Huh. I didn't know that. That is a parlance of the times that I was unaware of.
You never heard get yourself a lid?
Nope.
Cop a lid?
You sell me a lid?
Nope.
You sell me a lid?
I'm a real square. I never heard any of that stuff.
We knew that.
Mm-hmm.
In the Lidsville world, the magician is like now all green and he looks like a male witch, sort of.
Charles
and he
Nelson
wants
Riley?
to get It's still Charles Nelson Riley. So the teenage boy Mark, he falls into the hat of Merlot the magician at the Six Flags Over Texas show, and then he arrives in Lidsville, a land of living hats. The hats on the show are depicted as having the same characteristics as the humans who would normally wear them. So like a cowboy hat would speak like a cowboy. And the houses are also hat shaped. So everything's hat related.
I bet there's some real racist hats in there, isn't there? Aren't there?
I believe there were. So the villain of the show is a magician named Horatio J. Hoodoo. It's Charles Nelson Riley, and he's all green and weird looking. The vain, short-tempered, but somewhat naive Hoodoo flew around in his hatamaran, blasting the good citizens of Lidsville with bolts of magic, referred to as zapping, and keeping them in fear, demanding them that they pay their hat tax. Mark helped the good hats resist as he attempted to find a way back home. Hoodoo, trying to reclaim control of the androgynous Weenie the Genie from Mark. Weenie the Genie, I don't know what that is, often enlisted the services of 4 bad hats. So Huff and Stuff was the show where the kid had a flute, I believe,
the talking flute.
Yeah. Anyway, Mark is seen and suspected to be a spy against Hoodoo on behalf of the good hat people. And he's captured at the Derby Dunes by Hoodoo's minions, the Bad Hats. Pretty clever, the Bad Hats. The moment he had fallen into the world of Lidsville, he escapes from the clutches alongside a genie named Weenie. It's a lot of good writing. In his high hat home, he's got a real high hat. Hoodoo is constantly being besieged by the taunting music of his hat band, as well as all the talking knickknacks. Parrot, Mr. Skull, Mountain Alligator Head, the sawed-off half lady. Hoodoo also experienced further aggravation at the hands of his aides, a dim-witted, raunchy rabbit, and his two-faced card guard, Jack of Clubs. Hoodoo watched the action going on in downtown Lidsville from his hat home by using his evil eye. So it's just fucking nonsense. It's just fucking... I can read more about this shit, but in the show's final episode, scenes from the past episodes were featured as Hoodoo's mother, played by Muriel Sanders, had paid a visit to find out what's been going on in Lidsville while making sure that her son is still bad.
What?
Unfortunately for Mark, he did not return home at the end. No, they never do in all this. And music was a big part of the show. There's a lot of like kind of 60s garage rocky kind of psych bands in a lot of these shows. But it's so druggy.
Yeah.
It's so like it is insane how druggy all of this is. But I want to go through and kind of do a little recap of all of these Sid and Marty Krofft shows because they're pretty different, and a lot of them were. I'm trying to find more information about like who came up with the concepts for each of them because some of them are pretty different from other ones.
Yeah, the Far Out Space Knots is. And who was that idea brought to them and they did it with?
Well, this Lidsville came from a British series called the Hattitown Tales.
Oh, that explains a lot.
It's pretty
so it was like Steptoe and Son.
It was an identical concept, but with different characters and was produced in stop motion animation.
Okay.
So there's a similar look and feel to all this stuff, and that look and feel is cheap and bad.
Well, wasn't like their best camera trick to zoom in and out quickly over and over again, like to demonstrate panic?
Yeah.
Like that was a big, like a go-to effect.
This was the era of children all having hair that covers their ears.
Yes.
Males.
An era that is maybe, I don't know. That's come back. Has that come back?
That's hard to model.
I think we're a mishmash of all eras right now.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Especially the poodle skirts. The greasers.
I remember I was watching the Bugaloos when I found out my granddad was dead.
Damn, Brian.
True.
So this whole thing was traumatic for you.
Were you worried that Bonita Bazaar had something to do with it?
Of course, I can hide me, but it was just Sparky. Wasn't he like the screwball Bugaloo?
Yes, who had a gun that was plugged into the wall. I will say I did watch a little bit of the Bugaloos, which maybe we'll get into more later. But Bugaloos was basically it was all British except for the villain who was played by Martha Ray, and they kind of had a real band kind of vibe. I think maybe they did have a band, but
yeah, they had a band.
When they show the girl Bugaloos, the three boys and a girl, and the gal Bugaroo, the gal Bugaloo, I remember how much of a crush I had on her.
Nice. Yeah,
like a very and a very like child crush too, where it wasn't even like it. Like there was nothing about that crush that it would have caused a deposit at the Gitter app.
Right.
That was from the bonus story.
The kind of crushes you get on girls before you're trying to make some extra dough on the
It's from the bonus story. Nobody's going to get that.
Oh, they'll know. Well, by the time they hear this,
they'll know.
The number one, the only retailer of viable sperm will be Gitter. So
it's gonna be a real hell comes to Frogtown kind of situation.
Oh, yeah.
So,
man,
that wraps up. Oh, did you have more?
No, I'm looking at an image from the Bugaloos, and the lady Bugaloo.
Brian's getting a little excited.
She's kind of hot, right?
Yeah.
Wonder how old she was. Are we allowed to think she's hot now?
That's a good question.
It's kind of confusing. It's kind of confusing because she was a lot older. She's 72 now. Born in 1950.
That show was like 1970, right?
70 to 72, yeah.
Okay. You guys are safe.
So she was 20, yeah.
Well, I mean...
And you guys are 47 and 48.
No.
You don't know how old I am.
So, that wraps up another week of the International News Service. Find us across social media at International News Pod. Email us. I went horse on that. At internationalnewspod@gmail.com. The next time you're out and someone pisses you off, don't just flip them off. Also tell them about INS. Check out the INS merch store at Redbubble and our Patreon. And don't forget to check out our subreddit at r/INSpod. We'll see you next week.
If they piss you off, piss them, piss on them, piss in.
And then tell them about INS.
Piss on me. Don't tell them about INS.
Thank you for listening to the International News Service. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. INS, the news you need.
Sparky was performed by Billy Barty. Wow. Billy Barty was also Sigmund of Sigmund and the Sea Monsters.
Lucille Ball was shooting Here's Lucy in a neighboring stage and frequently dropped by the set. According to John McEnroe, she was quite enamored.
McEnroe. He's a
not
tennis,
McEnroe.
famous
She
tennis
was
player.
quite enamored by the
No, he's
Bugaloo's wings.
tennis player.